Hey there, everyone, and welcome to QSC Tech Talk. I'm Golden Preciado audio engineer and House of Worship specialist here with QSC. I'm super stoked to be hanging out here with you today. And you know what? It's a big deal because I have been struggling with my cameras here and getting them to work, but finally got them to work. Started just a little bit late, but I'm here and I'm ready to show you some really cool things. So today is the third episode in a series of 6 live streams covering mixer setup and workflow for common applications in House of Worship services. And I've been demonstrating how to create a contemporary House of Worship scene from scratch on a TouchMix-30 Pro. And as I create the scene, I'm not only teaching you how to use the many powerful features available to you on your TouchMix, but you're also learning how to best organize and streamline your workflow, making your live mixing experience intuitive and simple for you and your volunteers in the House of Worship setting. So I've been talking about church service dynamics as I do this, and this is helping us to determine how we continue setting up and organizing our scene. And so far, we've learned how to set up all our input channel strips. These include things like drums, bass, keys, guitars, vocals, spoken word, like your pastor, assistant pastor, announcement people. And then we also used our stereo input channels for background music and our presentation computers like ProPresenter. And in the last episode, we learned how to set up our output channel strips, which included things like our stage monitors, in-ear monitors, a discrete broadcast mix for our live stream. And we learned how to set up our broadcast mix and send it to other zones. For example, our patio area or a lobby, our assisted listening system for the hearing impaired. Oh, and don't forget, we also set up our record mix because the pastor likes to record his messages. Today, we will be setting up effects. Now, effects are like the icing on the cake. And when used properly, they really help smooth out your overall sound and add character to your mix. But for so many, the proper use of effects are a real mystery. We just don't know which one to choose, what the right settings are for that particular instrument or vocal. But fortunately, our QSC TouchMix-30 Pro has a really handy dandy little feature called the Effects Wizard. The Effects Wizard is going to take the guesswork out of choosing the best effects for your mix. And it's kind of like magic. And I see we have Keith that just joined us from Providence. And yes, Michael, cheers from Texas, cheers from California, thank you. And from West Palm Beach, I see Paul there. And also Mark from Laconia, New Hampshire. Thank you so much for joining me today. So excited to be showing you all this stuff. I can answer questions at the end as I see them in the comments section. So if you have something that you want to know about, go ahead and add those to the comments section, and I'll be able to get back to that after my demonstration. We also have Brad, our moderator, who's working behind the scenes, and he can also answer questions for you in the comments section as well. So we've been working with our scene so far, and we've created all these things, and we called it Our Cool Church. So I'm going to switch over right now to my TouchMix. But if you needed to change your scene to a new scene, you could click right up here in this corner, choose your scene, and then click recall and open that scene. But I already have it open, So I'm going to leave it right here. And you can see that we've already created our input channel strips, and over here our outputs with keys, lead vocal, some in-ear monitors, drum monitors, and right here our broadcast mix. And here's where we sent our signal to our other zones like the foyer, cry room, courtyard, our assisted listening for our hearing impaired, and then our record mix right here. So today we are looking at effects, and I'm going to start on bank one because we are going to use our effects wizard to pick the right effects for our instruments. And we're going to start with drums, which I had in my first bank. So over here, I know it's in the very corner. I'll move it over just a little bit here. Right here, it says wizard. You're going to press that button. And right here, it says effects wizard. Click the effects wizard. And we are going to be working with our first effects. You get to use 6 effects. We have 6 effects engines that you can use. So you can make a pretty sweet sounding mix with all these. We're only going to go through and use 4 of them for today. But I'm going to click on effects 1, and we are going to make that our drum effects. And you can see right here, these 3 windows guide you through how to choose the right effect for your drums. So source is drums. Type is, I don't normally put effect on a kick drum. So I'm just going to move right to snare. And over here on the effect preset, you have a bunch that you can choose that were created and work for snare. Now, I've previewed all these, and I've chosen some of my favorite. This D live plate medium is one of my favorites. So for the sake of our demonstration, I'm going to recall that and press yes. And I have recalled the D live plate, and I'm going to use that on my drums. In my next window, you can see a listing of all our input channels. And my first bank right here was drums. I would like to add this effect to my snare drum and to my 2 toms. So what the mixer has done is set nominal levels for the snare and both toms. Down here, you can actually send your effects to your monitors. So let's say your drum person wanted to hear effects from drums. You could choose his monitor, his IEMs right here, and add effects to his monitors. I don't recommend in wedges adding effects to wedges, especially for singers, because it tends to make them sing a bit flat and not hit the note exactly. So I'm going to leave that blank for now, but just know that you have that option down here where you can send effects to your output mixes. So I've clicked recall, I've added them to my drums. Now I want to label what effects 1 is. The labeling part, super important so you know what you're working with and where you put stuff. So I'm going to open up effects 1, and here in the setup window, I am going to type, let's put DR for drum, then verb. And I've labeled my drum effects. Now, if I go to, let's say, the snare, and I look under effects, you can see that it's added that effect to my snare drum. Now, let's say you were listening to your snare drum play and you just wanted more decay. You wanted more going on there. So you could just turn that up like that and add more of that effect. If we scroll over to our toms, you can see that it's also added a nominal amount of our drum effect to the toms. Here's my second tom. And you can see that it's added effect there as well. Let's go ahead and choose another effect. We are now going to work on, let's do vocals. Let's work on vocals. So I'm going to click the wizard here again because let's say I didn't know exactly what effect I wanted to use or would sound good with a vocal. I would click the wizard button, then click effects wizard, and then scroll on the source window to vocals, and then I'm going to choose backing vocals to start. In praise bands, I find that everybody solos at some time or another. So, everybody could be a lead vox at any one time, but I found that starting with a backing vocal reverb is a great place to start. And let's scroll through here. Here's one that I really like, L Rich Plate. I like that for vocals a lot. And I'm very important here. I needed to make sure that I was on effects 2 because I still had the drum effects selected. So now I'm on effects 2. I'm assigning the second effects engine, and I'm going to go recall. And you can see right here that it's added my new effect. Now my vocals are right here. These are all my channels. I'm going to go add it to my lead vocalist. I'm going to add that reverb to Sophia's vocal and then to Avalon's vocal right there. And I have other vocals in here, spoken word. Never add effects to spoken word. It doesn't sound very professional, and it also takes away from the clarity of the spoken word. Now I'm going to go label my effects 2 by clicking up here in the gray space. And I'm going to say Vox verb. Now let's go look what we did. My vocals were over here in this bank. So if I click in, here's our worship leader right here. You can see that it's added Vox verb. It's added a nominal amount of that vocal verb to Scott's vocal, to Sophia's vocal, and to Avalon's vocal. Now, if you wanted more or less on, let's say you wanted to add just a bit more to Avalon, this is where you could make that change right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and work. Oh, you know what? Let's work on a delay. I like to combine a delay with the reverb, especially for the lead vocalist. It just adds a richness and a fullness and a little extra something that's just epic. So let's go here, press the wizard. Again, we'll press the effects wizard right here. And I'm going to make this effect engine 3. So we're working on vocals. I'm going to choose lead vocal because that's where the delays for lead vocal are going to show up. And then in this effects preset window, I'm going to scroll down to Mono 250. Now, you can try all of these and sample them for yourselves and see what you like. I'm just choosing ones that I use in the House of Worship setting and that I like. So that I've already sampled them, and that's what I ended up with. So here we are with our Mono 250. I'm going to recall that. Now it's time to go add that to our lead vocalist. Scott is our worship leader, so we are going to add him right there. Now let's say Scott likes to hear some delay in his monitor. Right here in this section are our outputs, and you can add some of this effect into his monitor by choosing his monitor there, right there. So now, don't forget to label it. I label it Vox Delay. Here we go. So now when I go to Scott's vocal and click inside and look at his effects, you can see that it's added a vocal delay there in addition to his vocal reverb. Now, you may not want it that exact amount of each. You may want, say, a little less of the delay in there and perhaps just a tiny bit more of the reverb. And that's where you can adjust that right here. Now, remember I said labeling is important. The reason why is you can see it's actually labeling our effects inside the input channel. So drum verb, vox verb, Vox delay. So that's why we don't want to forget to label our effects. Press on our good old home button to get back to our mix window. Let's add some effects to our acoustic guitars and keyboards. So I'm going to press on the effects wizard one more time and then go to the effects wizard here. I'm going to choose frets. A lot of times what works for acoustic guitars is also going to work for keyboards. Keyboards often will have their own effects in them as well, so you may not have to add anything to keyboards. I'm going to press on effects 4 to make sure we're in the right place. And I like this D-Life plate for guitars. It works well. I'm going to recall that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add it to our acoustic guitars. Right here is that acoustic guitar. So I'm going to add some to our electric guitar too. And I'll add some to our keys right there. So that when we go and look at our banks and see what happened to acoustic guitar, you can see right here that it has added some acoustic guitar. Now, if you can see, what I did is I forgot to label it, and it just says effects 4. If I didn't label it, then somebody after you might not even know that that is an instrument reverb. So I'm actually going to go back to my effects and label that. Right here up in the top, you can access your effects masters. And I'm going to say INST verb. And there it's labeled. So that when I go look inside at what I've added this effect to, it now says instrument verb, and that makes it super helpful. So that is the basics of effects. And you know what, you can also, let's say you're listening to these and you want overall more drum reverb, you can turn up the entire effects master and add more reverb or less. Let's say you wanted more vocal verb on all the vocals. You could just turn that up like that in the effects master, or you can go to the individual channels and do it that way as well. So really quick, so as I said before, and Brad, you can put me back on the main screen. The effects masters by default are set at a nominal level, and you can raise those master levels more or less if you want. Don't forget, after you use the wizard, you can have control of every part of it after the fact. Let the wizard get you started is the main thing. Okay, so there you have it. We have successfully set up the effects for our broadcast mix. And I'm going to go over here in the comments and take a quick look, see what we got going on over there. So backing reverb, vocals, creates. Yes, you're right. The pad type of result for backing vocals, that's what it does. And something that I didn't get into this so much because the effect already had it in it, but those vocal effects have a pre-delay on it. So it allows the transient of the vocal to poke through first, making it not sound washed out, but you can really hear the effect. So they're just excellent presets, perfect for what we need. Oh, Craig, hey there from Australia. Awesome. Effects don't change the latency going into the output of the speakers, Mark, if that's what you're asking. I'm not exactly sure if that's what you're asking. When you're working in a DAW, the more inserted effects you add to an individual channel, it makes your program become latent for sure. When you work, and a DAW is a digital audio workstation like Pro Tools or Logic. But even in a DAW, I use inserts only where needed. I will set up auxiliary sends like what we did in the TouchMix and assign as many as what I can in a DAW to the same effect. So it slows down the latency. Anyway, so there you have it. We have successfully set up the effects for our mix for our cool church. And oh, the most important thing of this, after you're done, save. Got to save your scene. So don't forget to do that. We have so much more forward to look to as we continue through our mixer workflow series. And next up for us is user buttons and custom faders. And this will make it so that you're not switching banks all the time. You can just group everything right into one place, which is super helpful. Now, if you found this House of Worship audio training to be helpful, then you'll really enjoy being a part of our Facebook group called Church Sound Training. This group was actually created for church sound people and their volunteers, but the audio concepts that are taught here are universal and applicable across the board. The link to Church Sound Training Facebook group will be in the comments. And please, 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 please pass it on to whoever you think may find it useful and could benefit. Also wanted to let you know that on December 4th, I'll be presenting at a virtual conference organized by soundgirls.org. I'll be teaching broadcast mixing for live streaming. And you can register for that conference at soundgirls.org. Again, that's soundgirls.org. And the link will be in the comments below. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And I will see you on the next QSC Tech Talk. I'm Golden Preciado. And from all of us here from QSC, strive for excellence. Never stop learning and be the best that you can be. I'll see you next time.